Welcome everyone to Growth Talk episode number 20. I'm here with Julia. Julia, how are you today?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's hot. I'm sweating a bit. Like I explained before, it's in the 90s here in Germany. And we don't have air conditioning.
It's hot here, but it's not as hot as it is there.
Yeah. Well, must be nice. Huh?
Yeah. Well, compared to you, I think, I was thinking it's a bit inconvenient for me here, but, when I hear you talking, it's like it doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I could help in that area. It is early there too, though, right? So
yeah. It's 10 a.m. here. I'm on the West Coast.
So we're about over the hump. So it's about 7. So we got some time, and it'll cool down a little bit, which will be nice. So everyone, this is Julia. She's an ESFJ. She's been with the community for a really long time. I absolutely loved her videos when I watched them, and I thought she'd be awesome on the show. So I'm really happy she's here. And I feel like I'm talking with you, even like you're not in the room, but. So the first question I usually give out is just kind of a description of your type, which is a bit of a hard thing to describe, I guess, but just the kind of the 32, the FeSi. If you were to give that like in a nutshell or in a summary, like what would you say an FeSi is?
Yeah.
What's kind of your impression of that?
I feel like the ESFJs are like, I feel like the best archetype of the ESFJs are like the soccer mom. Like they're the soccer mom of the MBTI group, They're like the mom that's like working hard, that's like homeschooling their kids, and they're like very caring, very motherly. Everyone thinks their grandma is an ESFJ. They organize like the family dinner and the holidays and all the rest of it. Because I think the ESFJs are known as like the social organizer in kind of the MBTI group. And I don't necessarily see that specific like super social like big gathering thing in myself, but I do see that in the same sense as like trying to kind of being very focused on relationships and interactions between people, and trying to like coordinate interactions between people kind of in relationships. Mostly I think of my SF blast as like creating or kind of producing relationships between people, like literally producing like good, positive interactions between two people. It may not actually be the best way to do that. I think like, the SE cool guys are like actually better at actually producing that,
Okay.
But that's what my SF blast I think is kind of trying to do. And I think that's kind of how that archetype of like the social organizer comes about. And then, the FE is just like super nicey, and it just, I see how it totally evolved into like the soccer mom, the mom that homeschools their kids, the like, loving, caring grandma, the kindergarten teacher, all kind of things like that. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, So it's kind of like one of those things where you're not necessarily the soccer mom. But you could easily be the soccer mom if you wanted to, because you have like that skills that kind of allow you to do that, I guess. Somewhat.
Yeah. And like, I'm not a mom. I don't fulfill that archetype at all, but I see those parts in me, and I see why that archetype started.
Sure.
But I will also say that's like the very like double feminine, even like female, part of the archetype, which I think like the double feminine ESFJ is a very like female centric archetype. The double masculines I feel like are totally separate. Like, not separate, but like it's a different archetype. When you meet like a double masculine ESFJ, either like male or female, it's a different vibe. I don't know exactly know what the double masculine ESFJ archetype is. I mean, at all, but
I don't know. I guess maybe Dr. Phil would fit. It's kind of like I will form a social connection with you, and you will respect your mother. That sort of thing. You know what I mean?
You will be my friend whether you like it or not.
You're all going to be friends, as a matter of fact, or else.
My mom, I think, is probably lead masculine FE. I think she's an ESFJ jumper, FeNe, and she is like, you will be happy.
You better smile.
I think it's funny because like my like feminine FE gets, you know, like tickled by it, but it is very much like, we're going to have a good time. It's very interesting. I do like the masculine FE.
Mm-hmm. Well, so was that, I've always wondered actually, like if you have a parent that's very close to your type, does that create conflict or cohesion? What was it? What was it like for you, would you say?
A little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm the only SFJ, NTP, alpha quad person of the kids in my family. So my dad, I think, is TISI, and my mom, I think, is FeNe.
Okay.
And my brother and sister are NTJ SFPs.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely see that I understand my parents in a different way. Like when we're hanging out, I'm more, I can tell I'm talking the same language as my parents, and like I'm more cohesive with my parents. Like when we're together, when we're in a family unit, like my brother and sister are, you know, like they get each other, and then my mom and dad and I like get each other. You know?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely see that, but I do also see just like my mom and I together, our fears will like escalate and compound on each other. You know, like even, you know, when I was a kid, I remember like social stuff and like friends and trying to like I'm always thinking about like friends and like making friends and do I have enough friends, do I have the right friends, and that's like what I'm, you know, thinking of a lot. And my mom is also thinking of those things for her kids. She's like, did you like go out and do things with your friends today? Did you do the right things with your friends today? Are your friends good friends? Do you have enough friends? Should you have more friends? You don't have enough friends. Should you, you know, on and on and on. And then that will like just kind of make my FE go a little bit crazy. So there's that. So I would say it's both. There's a cohesion, and then there's also a maybe not butting heads, but a compounding of the fears, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I would have thought as a parent, you'd be like kind of preaching your demons to your kids. You know what I mean? Like if you're FE, you're gonna be like, okay, you need to figure out what you want to do. Okay, you know, go learn some stuff or whatever, or you know. But yeah, maybe that's not always the case. Maybe it is still like, you know, saviors and stuff like that, which,
well,
I guess that makes sense.
She is a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So I think the other thing I've noticed is I think she actually might be consume last. I'm not totally sure, but I think she might be play, blast, sleep, consume, and I'm sleep last. So she does kind of, I wouldn't say preach her sleep to me, but she's very much encouraging me to do my sleep.
Okay.
And I actually see myself kind of naturally encouraging her to do her consume, like in like a third animal hobby way. Like this is a bit easier for me to like encourage you to do. And that is sometimes useful. Sometimes it can cause conflict depending on how she does it, since I'm like, you know, weird with my sleep. But it'll be like, she'll give me advice about like how to like chip away at things to like build something. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? You know? So she will do that. Well, she'll kind of give me advice on my sleep, especially.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes welcome, sometimes not welcome. Actually, that's not true. Like 90% of the time, it's like not welcome. But there's definitely that 10%.
Well, yeah, advice from parents are, I feel like, it's usually not welcome, I would say, because usually it's well, if you have an OI parent, it's usually the same like advice you've heard since you were like 5, or at least with one of my parents that's lead SI. It's the same advice since I could walk, the same exact advice, and he tells it like he's just telling it to me for the first time. It's like, yeah, I think I know this, and this advice does not apply to me being in my 30s anymore. You know what I mean?
Wait, is he SI or NI?
SI.
Okay.
Yeah, the SI at the top.
So it's the exact same sensory.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my God. And he's like ISTJ, so completely outside of my quadra. We miss each other a lot on a lot of stuff. And the stuff he's preaching is just security, 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 security. You got to build up. You're like, you don't know what could happen, Dave. It's a crazy world out there. You know what I mean? And yeah. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, okay, I wonder if his type was, I wonder if he was actually an INFJ, how that would work out. If I'd still get tired of his advice, or if I'd be more accepting because it's NF stuff. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting relationship.
I don't know. I do also wonder. Well, I guess my dad is pretty opposite to me, My dad, I think, is T on SI. And my dad and I get along really, really well. Like when we're together, we're just like, well, we fall into like his sleep hole, which is just like, you know, me like calm and relaxing, and you know, so my dad and I get along really, really well. So I do see that oppositeness. And then my brother and sister are actually very opposite as well. My sister, I think, might be some kind of NTJ. My brother's some kind of SFP, and so they have a lot of oppositeness, and they, they definitely vibe really well as well, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's tough as a kid if your parents are in the opposite quadrant, I think. Well, I mean, for you, I guess it works out okay. But yeah, for your siblings, that must be like, oh, they don't get me. I think Dave talked about that a bit.
Sorry, say again?
I think Dave talked about that as well. I think his dad is like TI or something or whatever, and his mom's I think an ESFJ, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just didn't really understand the whole FI thing and stuff like that. And it was always a struggle for him as well.
I do actually love when Dave rants about his parents, because like especially like his mom and her lead FE, he'll like rant about stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would totally do that. If I had an FI kid, like I would 1000% do
that. I just like Dave ranting in general. I think all of his rants are funny.
Yeah,
they're so good. I think it's just something about like lead OI, and maybe it's a combination of DI as well. But just that like ranting about how like stuff should be like this, but it's not. My dad also does that about everything, and he'll do it. He'll go on an hour rant about like mayonnaise. Just how he hates mayonnaise. He hates mayonnaise so much that he will go on an hour rant about how stupid mayonnaise is. He's like, dang that mayonnaise. I don't know how people eat that shit, man. It's sour. It don't look good. It's gross. Man, he'll go and go and go and go, and you're just like laughing the whole time, because then he comes up with these really weird like analogies for it too occasionally. It's just anyway, it's entertaining. I love a good rant for sure.
For me, it's the FI. I love the FIs when they rant, because it there's a sense of like, I want it to be this way just because like I want that, and it tickles my FE. I'm just like, you just want it because you just want it.
I just do. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I want it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about that I just find so absolutely adorable.
Yeah, it's almost a little like kid-like, a little bit. You know, they just want something and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, I feel like all the extroverted functions view the introverted functions as like kid-like in a way. And the masculine functions viewing the feminine functions.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that a bit. They kind of like looking at the other one like, what are you doing there? Like, aren't you a little too all in on this little thing here? Like, that's what the SeFe is kind of seeing for the introverted ones. It's like, oh, FI, okay, you really like that ice cream, huh? Okay. Oh, that's the best one. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. But they're probably looking at us the same way with the TI stuff. Like, what is this dude doing in his room all the time? Like, what are you working on? Like, what is this thing? It's a clock manual. Everyone's gonna love it. It's like, well, I don't love it. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what was it like when you were young with your type? Were you still kind of, did it seem like you were very, I guess, FE? Do you feel like you're kind of having a similar mindset as you are to now, as far as like, were you really into your saviors back then? The reason I ask is because I feel like a lot of people feel like they were a different type when they were young. And I don't know if it's just because it's easier to remember when you're acting strange or something like that. But do you feel like you could relate to your type back then?
Sorry, what did you say? You don't know if it's what?
What did I just say? I don't know if they're just remembering like just things when they went against their own behavior, and those things are just easy to remember when they were younger, or if they're really remembering like the pattern of like their life and the things that they would do all the time, or are they just remembering those special moments where they did something out of character and then said, oh, see that one time I organized, clearly I'm OI, that sort of thing. But yeah, I wonder about that.
I would actually say I feel like I view myself through the lens of my saviors up until maybe like high school even. And then once I started getting to like academics, honestly, was when I was like, oh, I'm obviously savior NT, you know, which that kind of makes sense because that's an academic thing. But when I think about, like actual childhood, it does seem very double feminine, SF, demon, DI, because I was just like a cute little, like, I was just a cute little, like, adorable, sweet little girl, you know? Like, I was just, like, nice. I was, like, nice to everyone, you know? I was, yeah.
You're an easy child to raise, it sounds like, right? Like, I've always thought, like, wouldn't it be the best to have an FE kid as a child? Wouldn't that be the easiest kid to raise, I would think. Don't know how true that is, but, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I was an easy child. My mom has told me that several times. So my brother's probably an audio, either ISFP or ESFP, and she's like, she doesn't really like to compare her kids because she's like lead FE, but she's like leaked out like he was really hard, like you were so easy and nice and you know just easy to handle, because my brother's like masculine FI, I'm gonna do what I want, and then masculine SE of just like I'm gonna go be a crazy chaos monkey and like get into trouble and all that jazz. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting at home like nice, shy, quiet little feminine FE girl. Like you're so easy.
So you were shy back then when you were a kid?
Yeah, from like a single decider perspective. I mean, like afraid of like, you know, interacting with people. I would actually even say I was like a quiet kid.
Okay.
And that's feedback that I got from my family a lot. And a lot of it was not wanting to talk about myself, because when people like ask me questions about myself, I just like want to like shut up. And even I can see my demons sleep a lot when I was a kid. So I a lot of my demon sleep is, I mean, there's several aspects to it, but one of them is not being able to actually talk about and or remember the things that I've done in my life. And that's part of the feminine sensory. So I have feminine SI. So like I just forget everything sensory that happened. But then also demon TI, demon sleep is like I actually don't remember my own behavior, what I did, my own decisions, everything about relating to myself and what I did. So like
just in the recent past, or like when you were a kid, or is this just like an?
Oh, this has been since I was born.
Okay, so even now, like within the past couple of years, it's hard to remember like the personal stuff that you've done. Okay.
Yeah. Feminine. Shan once said that feminine sensory feels like amnesia to her, and like I feel that, and it's also amnesia in the sense of I don't know whether or not I did that.
Okay.
So
is
like,
that a bit scary? Like, is that a bit like? For me, that feels a bit frightening. Yeah.
It's mortifying. Are you kidding me? It's absolutely terrifying. It's beyond scary. It's so scary. Yeah, because it's like I'm not tracking the things that I'm doing in life. It's very, very scary. I mean, I have ways to like. Okay, so I'll explain how this manifested in childhood. Is like my mom, when I would like come home from school, she would like ask me what I did that day, and I would be like deer in headlights, like I literally don't know what happened at school today. Like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. And they'd be like, well, that's ridiculous. You can't just not remember what happened at school today. And they'd be like, okay. And they would have to give me multiple choice options. Like, did you have lunch with Billy? No. Did you have lunch with Bobby? No. Did you have lunch with Susie? Yeah, I did. I had lunch with Susie today. And then I would go on a story and be like, and I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you know, like whatever. Like I would like launch into it. So it's like the demon TI is there. Like I know it, you know, it's not actually missing. It is there, but it's like I need a multiple choice quiz for me to know, which is so bizarre. And like even now, like, do you want to do it this way? No. Do you want to do it this way? No. Do you want to do it this way? Yeah, I do want to do it. Okay, yeah, I'll do it that way. You know, like, yeah, it's there. It's just I can't bring it up willingly.
Yeah,
I have to have someone like
bring back,
pick it apart.
Do you so do you hate getting asked that question then? Like, hey, what did you do today? Is that?
It depends on who's asking it and depends on the context. Like if it's a friend, then like, I mean, I can even make a joke out of it, and like sometimes I just like make shit up. Like, I don't know, I went to the moon today. Like, can we move on with our day? You know, and then it's like, and then we could like, you know, make something funny. Like it's fine. But you know, there are times when it's like someone really needs to know something that I did, and I don't know, and I'm like frantically like, oh shit, like did I write that down? I don't know. And so I mean, yeah, I can get definitely. There are times when I get into trouble from it for sure. But it totally depends on the context.
So believe it or not, I can really relate to that, even though I'm like masculine.
Oh, yeah?
But like, you don't ask me what I did during the day, because I will not be able to tell you. Like, what'd you do today, Dave? I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, and then it's also frustrating when people ask, because then you don't have anything to say, and it's like, well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think I just sat around. Like, I don't know. Like, I think I probably ate something at some point. You know what I mean? I only remember stuff that's really TI important, I think. So if it's something I had to do for work or whatever, I could tell you in like painstakingly detail exactly what I did, but I can't tell you like what I ate for lunch or anything that wasn't like a focused activity. Do you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, I always had amnesia with that. Or like when people ask me very broad and I questions, my dad's like, what do you do over there in Germany? Like, same stuff you do back home? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Like, I put on Lederhosen and I go to Oktoberfest. I don't know how to answer that. So those questions always get me. I'm like, man, I don't know. I can tell you what I did one time, like months ago. That's important to me, but I can't tell you in general what I do, you know?
Is it because you don't remember, or is it because you don't want to tell them, or is it because you're not getting the NI concept of like the gist of what you're doing, so it's hard to communicate it to someone in a streamlined way?
Yeah, well, two things. For one, I don't remember it. Two, I can't just stuff for you very easily. Like what is the general pattern of stuff that you do? Because my mind still just wants to just go through a library of examples. It's like, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Okay, all of those things I did mean I generally do this, and that takes me a while to do that if I haven't thought about it already. Do you know what I mean? To kind of synthesize the pattern of it, because my brain's not working in patterns; it's working in like this. What does all that mean? It means the NI. But like, I'm not like, you know, I don't have sleep high enough to just have that ready for you unless it's something I've really thought about. You know what I mean? So that can be difficult. But I'll remember like just random stuff. It's like, why do you remember like something when you were 3 years old? Like, how do you remember something like that? I don't know. I just can't tell you what I ate today, but I remember that one time on Valentine's Day, 1989, when I wrote, you know.
So let me ask you, one of the things I've heard from the FEs, and I actually think I've heard this from like the Sleep Last FEs, and I think from like SeFes, and I've had this as well, is like, they've said they've had, and I have had as well, like dreams where we dream that someone from the tribe tells us that we like did something bad. Like someone from the tribe tells us you like killed someone in your sleep last night. And it's like, and you wake up and you're like, I don't know if I believe them or not. Like, I think maybe I do believe them. I think that they're probably right. Or maybe I did do that. Maybe I didn't do that. And it's really scary because you don't know what you did, like literally during your sleep when you weren't actually paying attention. Do you relate to that at all? Of like the tribe tells you that you did something?
Yeah, kind of. So it's a similar thing where the dreams are very decidatory, but it's usually the whole tribe just being like, Dave. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like everyone just kind of being at least slightly disappointed in me in some kind of way, or I messed up at something or whatever. It's not usually one person though, or like, you did this bad thing. It's more like, Dave, like everyone just collectively doing that. I would say that's the mass majority of the decider dreams that I have. So it's kind of similar, but I think yours seems to be more focused somehow. I don't know. Seems different, but the same.
Well, mine is specifically, I don't know whether or not it actually happened.
Oh, in the dream, you're like, wait, did I do that?
Yeah. I don't know whether or not I actually like.
I haven't had that one. No.
You don't?
I haven't had that one. No, but I'll have like a dream where the same pattern repeats itself. I guess that would be like a demon and I thing.
Yeah.
In the dream, I don't realize it. I'm like, oh, this dream again. Okay, great, and blah blah blah. And then it turns out the same way it did last time, and I'm like, what? How? You know? And then I wake up I'm like, oh, it's a damn dream again. Like I have this one. Yeah.
Is it more so the tribe like thinking you did something bad or something good, and then like?
It's not something specific. It's more just like the tribe's vibe towards me is always a bit like I'm kind of outcasted, I guess. If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Which I think is like a pretty relevant connection to like real life, where you kind of have, I think a lot of times as a lead TI, a little tinge of that, where the tribe's just kind of like, you're over there, we're here having fun without you. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably why it manifests itself in my dreams a lot. And I think I want to say for other lead TIs, it's probably a similar thing. But yeah, it's more of a generalized thing.
Yeah. And for other single deciders, like you said, that single decider thing, have dreams about people are telling you you're bad.
The people, yeah. Don't really have any observer dreams that much, you know? Sometimes I'll have dreams where like I'm
mayonnaise.
where I'm just cursing at a mayonnaise bottle for 2 hours. Why is this here? Who made this? Why is it on my sandwich? Yeah. That'd be a nicer dream. I would enjoy that dream more. It'd be funny to laugh at.
That'd be so much fun.
Indeed. Yeah, I've kind of lost our thread. What were we talking about? Remembering stuff and being double feminine when you're younger, and then in general, just like you're like, oh, hey, I didn't remember that. Is there stuff that you do remember very easily or very well?
Probably. There's probably a pattern of things that I'm more likely to remember versus things that I'm less likely to remember. Honestly, the only thing that I can think of is like emotionally, like, you know, moving events are more easy to remember, but everyone is like that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're emotionally moved, your adrenaline kicks in and then you're way more likely to remember it.
Can you remember your emotional state like very easily, like in the past? Like, could you remember what you felt like at this certain time, even if it wasn't necessarily a major event? Is it easy for you to conjure that up?
That's such a good question. Yeah, I would think so. It's a lot easier for me to remember my emotional state than it is to remember like behavior or my actions or my decisions.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't say I'm constantly like thinking about my emotional state. You know, it's not like when I visualize a situation in my head, sometimes my emotional state is involved in it, but sometimes it's not. You know, it's not like always there, something that I'm always kind of like filtering through the lens of, you know? But I do seem to be able to remember my emotional state reasonably well.
Oh man, that must be so nice. Like I as you probably guessed, I can't do that almost at all. Like I can remember that I was upset, but I can't know how that felt. Like I don't remember. I have to kind of guess on how that would have felt, you know what I mean? But I don't remember like how bad stuff was or whatever, or how great things were a lot of times. So like I have to write it down somewhere, which sounds strange.
So can you like step into your own shoes of something in the past and then feel what you felt then, or no?
Yeah, but it's a guess. It's not the actual feeling. It's more like, okay, how would I feel? And usually that's based on the context of who I am now, which is a different person than back then, right? So it's like, it's more like, it's hard for me to go back into when I was like, say, young, because I had a different brain and a different perspective back then. It would be, if I went back to that memory or like to a memory that was traumatic or something like that, it would be more like how it would affect me now if I were there. Does that make sense? I can't necessarily recall exactly what I had felt back then. It's more of a guess, like, okay, this is how it would feel based on what I know. So like, I don't remember all that stuff so well. I might remember it in just a logical sense, like, okay, I felt bad or I was scared or whatever, but I wouldn't be able to feel the actual scared or the fear of it if there was fear.
That definitely makes sense. Because I can definitely jump back into my body like several years. I can jump back into my body even when I was like a kid.
Oh,
and
wow.
like sit there seeing the other people around me and like feeling the fear of like, you know, of like, oh my God, people. So yeah, I can definitely do that. I'm not like constantly doing that. That's not something that's like recurring in my head, but I can. I have the ability to do that. So for you, so like, because for me, not being able to kind of see my own actions is really scary. For you, is not being able to like kind of feel your own feelings, like either what you have felt or what you're feeling now. Like, is that scary to you, not being able to like access that, or does it like not matter?
I wouldn't say that it feels scary, but it feels like a disability, I would say, because it's like, you know, that would really come in handy if I can remember that. Just not only for my own sake, so I don't repeat things that got me to that spot if it was a bad spot, or that I should repeat those events if it was a good spot because this is how I felt. Like a lot of times I'll go and do something that I know that it's fun, but I don't necessarily have a feeling of how fun it's going to be. And then I get there, I'm surprised, like, oh, I really love this. And then I'll forget that I loved it. I'll know that I loved it, but I won't know how much I loved it. And so I'm just constantly rediscovering that somehow, which is really annoying. So it's just, I guess feel scared of it. I'm just like, man, it'd be great if I could remember this because it's kind of annoying that I just forget, you know what I mean? And I think from an empathy perspective, it's really helpful because I think as a demon FE, you're probably really trying to work on your empathy in that sort of way. And if I have those memories of where I was, it's going to be a lot easier for me to completely or to more so understand when somebody else is in that situation. Like I'll know cognitively that they're feeling this way, but I won't necessarily be able to feel what they feel a lot of the time, depending on the situation. So there's like a cognitive empathy, but there's not like an effective sort of, there's another word for effective empathy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And what you're saying about like, I don't know whether I'll like that thing or not, that I do actually relate to that a little bit because with FE, sometimes like those kind of middle ground emotions can get very murky, and it's hard for me to figure out like, was I happy because that other person liked the thing, or was I happy because I liked the thing?
Oh, okay.
And so I do experience the same thing when someone like asks me to go do something. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to. And they're like, you know that you love this thing, and like if you come along with us and do this thing, you're gonna have fun and love it, right? Like, no.
I get that told to me as well. Yeah.
Right. I hadn't thought about that,
Yeah.
So I do. Yeah, I definitely do experience that.
Okay. So it's a similar thing.
I feel like that's just an FE thing. God, I've heard that from so many FEs.
Yeah,
Demon FEs,
probably feminine
FE
especially, I would think.
Yeah. Of like, I need to ping off of someone to know whether I just like it because I like it. I need to ping off to someone to know whether my emotions are good or bad.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things I don't like myself, but like when I'm with somebody, then I do like it if they like it.
Yeah.
Like watching movies that I've already watched, I'd never do that. But I'm with my girlfriend and I want to show her this movie, then I can re-enjoy the movie like I watched it the first time because she's there. But if she's not there, then I'm like, I already know this movie. Turn it off. You know what I mean? It's weird how that works, huh?
Totally.
Yeah.
It feels like so much of that stuff, like the bullshit stuff, like the do I like it, do I not like it, in terms of like movies and like event, like things that are kind of superficial. That stuff feels so movable. Like if I'm around someone who likes it, then great, I'll like it. And it feels like my TI is so much more like the things that are actually important to me to like have in my life that I want to like stick around, that are TI important. And then like the little like the fun superficial stuff is like, yeah, sure, movable.
Do you ever, with the fun and superficial stuff, do you ever like, do you feel like you're watching it or hearing it from their ears? Like if I show somebody a song or something and I really like the song, and then they're there and they start listening to it, and then all of a sudden I feel like I'm hearing the song differently. I'm hearing how I'm thinking that they're hearing it. I'm like, oh wait, this wasn't a good song to show them. Do you ever get that?
What an interesting question. Do I feel it through their feelings? I have done that. I have experienced that where I can kind of, when someone is around, I'll feel like I'll feel it the way that they feel it. But I also think that the majority of the time I convince myself that it's the way that I'm feeling it. Or I can decide to convince myself that it's the way that I'm feeling it, or I can decide to distance myself from it and just have them feel it and not me feel it. So I kind of like, I know what you're talking about, but I can't bring up an example of when I've done that. Yeah. Yes and no, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's interesting though.
Yeah, I've always wondered if that's like an FE thing or what that's about. But I feel like
so it changes the way that you experience something because okay, so let me see if I understand. So it changes the way that you experience something because when they're in the room, the way that they experience it affects you. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like it feels like a blend of how I know, like let's say we're talking about a song, how I know the song and what their evaluation of it is. And all of a sudden I see kind of I don't know. I feel like I'm like, oh wait, this is not a good song or a good time for this movie or whatever. Like as soon as it comes on, I'm like, oh wait, this is a mistake. And then sure enough, they're like, yeah, this isn't really my thing. I'm like, I knew it, but I didn't know it before I knew it.
And then you can kind of like triangulate off of them whether it's something that you should enjoy at that moment, given the circumstances, given like.
Yeah, it's just a weird sort of thing where you're just like automatically like, oh, okay, they don't. And maybe it's an SeFe thing because you're just like, even though I'm DNFE, like knowing what the tribe likes is generally not too difficult, or knowing what someone specifically would like, just based on other preferences. Because even though I'm like TI, I'd like if somebody says that they like something, then that's automatically remembering that. You know, if you like this or this is your preference, I'm going to remember that for some reason. And so when I like say, oh, you like the song or this movie, usually I'm right, but every once in a while I'm wrong. And I know that I'm wrong immediately when I start showing them. I'm like, man, I missed that one.
Yeah. I think I actually do know what you're talking about, and I think I am actually doing that quite often. I bet it's different with FeSe than FeNe because the way I'm pinging off people isn't about I play a song and then I triangulate off of you whether you like this sensory song. It's way more nebulous than that. It's like I'm pinging off the entire vibe of the room. But I am like the vibe of the room does influence me a lot, and the people who are in the vibe of the room absolutely influence me a lot. So when something changes about that, then it can, give me feedback about how I feel about something. But it doesn't feel like it's so specific. It doesn't feel like it's so SE related,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I would like it if you could talk more about NF play a little bit. I'm still trying to understand that a bit more. It seems like it's kind of like you all are focused on the ones in the alpha quadrant, kind of on like relation dynamics and stuff like that. Like I'll see, for instance, with SF play, and when and I'm in a room with people, I'm not seeing like the whole vibe of the room, but I'm seeing everyone's individual kind of state. Like, oh, this person looks tired. This person seems to be upset about something. Wow, what did this person take later? Could I have some of that? That sort of thing. But I feel like FeNe or NEFE, it's a different thing, right? Are you kind of seeing the overall like state of the whole room, or like do you have some insight into that?
Yeah, it's so hard to explain because it's NF is like, how the fuck do you explain NF?
Yeah, I don't even know what it
is.
It's
like I can almost like it's almost easier to start with SF Blast to ping off of because SF Blast is a bit more concrete. So I think I've already said SF Blast feels like it's so much like creating physical interactions between people that are good. Just like creating a relationship between two people where you know that you can kind of like always basically go back to that box and like be with that person like emotionally, creating that kind of vibe with the other person. And like in the physical realm so that we can consistently have good vibes together. So that's kind of what SF Blast feels to me. It's very relationship focused. NF play feels very nebulous, and it's so much about like the external vibe in the room. I think the best way to explain this might actually be kind of like the social justice warrior archetype. I feel like that's very FeNe and less so me. Even though I have double activated NF, I feel like that's less so my archetype. It's more so the FeNe one. Even though I can feel that. And to me it feels like I'm feeling the whole energy of, say, like a country, right? I'm feeling the whole energy of the country and how the country is changing and moving, and that changes my emotional state and also changes my own like incentives of like what I want to do. So I've actually been thinking about this just because of the Roe v. Wade was overturned recently. Just yesterday even. It already feels like it was an eternity ago, but I think it was just yesterday. Anyways, so it feels like that's, like that type of thing changes my NF perspective of the country because I can just feel everyone feeling, like off kilter from it. And so it just feels like it disrupts the vibe in a way that I can tell that it changes kind of the future path of like the entire tribe. So it feels like it's just, I totally understand why the FeNes are kind of the social justice warrior archetype, because it's like you feel these global changes that happen in like the country or in a community, and then you can kind of see how that changes the emotional state for everyone and how that changes the future for everyone. And then it feels like it changes your emotional state as well. And it's an energy thing, right? Because it's play. So it's like it's a movement from all of the NF people.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
That makes a lot of sense actually. And and the people I know that are NF play, when they talk about world stuff and they seem to be really troubled by it, now it makes a lot more sense. Because to me, it's like, well, yeah, it sucks and it's bad, but I mean, yeah, what can you do? You know, which probably not a great response to a lot of stuff, but it makes more sense how it's a lot more impactful, because my brain is just not seeing the overall the movement or the direction of the country and all that stuff like that. I have like ideas of like where it should move, maybe with NF Blast, or like where I would like it to go or what we should do. But as to where it is and where that could lead, I'm like, I don't know, but it should go that way. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the difference.
Like logic about where you should go. Like let's fucking solve the thing instead of just sit around and feel our feels. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually cleared up a lot. Yeah, thank you for that. That was a really good explanation.
And for me, it feels like I actually like feel it. And I can go in and out of it. Like I can distance myself from it quite a bit. Like I can I can't necessarily tap into my like sleep very easily, but I can definitely distance myself from the FE, you know, kind of at will. So I can kind of go in and out of it. But like when I'm in it and like I can actually feel the NF of like humanity, it feels very, it feels like a weight, you know, it's like bricks like that are just like kind of like weighing down on my body. I can actually feel it like in my body. It's a very intense feeling once I like do step into it, because it's like the whole like, it sounds so silly to say, but like the whole like weight of the world that like feels like it's like going through my body.
That's a lot to deal with. I mean,
it is.
You almost feel like you have a responsibility then, which like, I mean, I guess you do. You can vote or whatever, but you can't really change it, right? You can affect what could possibly change it, but you're not really in control of it. So you're just like burned by it all the time, and it's like, I'm not strong enough to move the world, right? You know, I can't really do that much about it. So that sounds like it must be really tough to deal with, actually.
It can be really hard to deal with, because it does feel very much like a responsibility, that it feels like I need to do something to, you know, cause something to change, to act, to go and blaster people and tell them that they should be the good stripe people, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's also like, if I decide not to do that, it feels like I have to have, you know, reasons to not do that. And then it's like, oh, well, am I a bad person because I like don't care about people enough? And it is difficult to figure out how to kind of take on the responsibility to, like, you know, be a good citizen of humanity and care about people, and not like run your life into the ground because you're forcing people to like change against their will, you know. It is that balance is hard, which that's just my FE and TI. So yeah.
Sure. You mentioned earlier about how you can distance yourself from your FE. What does that look like? Does that just like distracting yourself, or is there some kind of mental sort of process that's going on, or what? Like, yeah, could you talk more about that?
It's not a distracting myself. It's just an internal emotional change. You know, feels like kind of like a gate switch, just like in my body, that I can kind of turn on and off. It's not anything that I'm doing. It's just an internal like feeling of stepping into the feeling versus stepping outside of the feeling. It's hard to describe how I do that, because there's not really a how.
Yeah, it's like a very internal.
It's not something mental, and it's not something, you know, like that I'm physically doing. It feels like, you know, it's an NF thing. It's I don't think I can even describe how I do that.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't whatever that is, I don't have that.
Yeah.
If it's there and I'm feeling it, then we'll just feel it until it's gone. You know, which can take a while. But yeah, it would be nice to have the sort of switch to be like, no, I'm just gonna do this now.
Well, because your FE is feminine, And your NI is feminine as well. So you have double feminine NF.
Yeah.
So, okay, but you have double feminine NF, but blast last. So your blast last is should be quite movable. Do you feel like it is movable, but you can't control it? Or how does that feel for you in terms of the movability?
As far as feelings are concerned, yeah, they move all over the place. I could go from all the way up here, all the way down here, or just be here the whole time or whatever. And it just feels like I'm just, wow. Like it just like something's pushed me around that I'm not like controlling like what my emotional state is so much, you know?
So it feels like, does it feel like something else is pushing you and you don't have, like, can you push back against it? Can you change the emotion once you're in it? Or does it feel like it's something external that you can't like control?
It feels like it's an internal reaction to stuff when I'm like resisting whatever the stuff is. Like something happens and I don't like it, then I'm just going to sit there and not like it for a long time until like I, see a dog on the street or something, and then I'll feel differently and then maybe go back to that and whatever. So it just feels like stuff just keeps happening and I just keep reacting to it and I just keep seeing my reaction to it. It doesn't feel like I'm choosing the emotional reaction to it, nor does it feel like I have the control to take this emotion and change it into something else, unless like in small cases, like if I'm anxious about something like for work, I just go do the thing and then I'm not anxious about it anymore. Like besides like ST stuff I can ST, you know what I mean? But for other stuff, it's just like, well, I just kind of feel this way for a while. Yeah. And then it'll change based on whatever, But yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm the one in the driver's seat for sure with all that.
Yeah. That makes sense, having it as a demon. That's, yeah. Yeah, that does make sense, totally. I'm trying to think if I felt that like as a kid, if I can like see the trajectory of that developing over time, and I kind of can't.
Yeah, it's something to work with.
It probably
could be. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a superpower, I guess. Yeah, I think all the types have their own little thing that they like, these little cognitive things that you can do that other types, well, I don't want to say can't do, but need some sort of training to be able to do that, whereas it comes naturally probably to some other types, which is kind of cool because then I feel like we're X-Men a little bit. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of like superheroes in a way. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, well, we totally weed out of the whole childhood thing. what were some of the?
I think we've gotten off track. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Can you think of some demon like TI stuff in your childhood, or like were you like might have realized that like that was a sort of demon, or even with NE or anything like that? Were you conscious of that at all when you were younger, or is that something that would take a lot longer to come up?
From my childhood specifically, I think the example I gave with like not being able to like recount what I did during that day is probably the best demon TI thing that I can think of. I didn't have many demon TI freakouts in terms of like not being able to do stuff. I feel like the not being able to do stuff thing, I've only started seeing that, I feel like, in my like late 20s when I started to like really like take on responsibility in life, because TI doing stuff is like easy until, you get to like a hard part of life. So I feel like there's not a ton of demon TI stuff that I see in my childhood. Even like demon NT stuff, like I was really smart as a kid. Like I did great in school. I got really, really good grades. I was like in the gifted programs. I was a really smart kid. It wasn't until grad school that like things got really hard. Again, because it's like NT isn't that hard until it like gets actually really hard. So yeah, the not being able to see my own stuff that I'm doing is, I think, probably the best example that I can think of from like actually when I was a kid.
Okay. Yep.
And then once I was
yeah, it's hard to see some of that as a kid, I think. Yeah.
Like the demons started to come into play,
And probably OP probably helps, I think, shine a light on a lot of that stuff, I would imagine.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about what we talked about before this? I don't know if it's too personal, but you kind of had around the time how you found OP and kind of what led to that.
Yeah, like relationship stuff. Yeah, sure. So, so I mean, I can see my demon TI in terms of like not being able to see my own actions and stuff like that, but also like not being able to see what's important to me and what I want to do in my own life and making kind of my own decisions. And that manifests in a ton of different ways, right? So like all of my tidal waves in general are under the kind of umbrella concept of like not being able to make something work in my life that's important to me because I choose for this thing to be important and I have my reasons for it to be important and like yada yada. So like not being able to make something work in my life, that's important to me. And that manifests in like a ton of different ways, little ways, you know, every single day. But the biggest is obviously relationships. I mean, as a single decider, which we talked about this, relationships are always like the biggest one.
Yeah.
And I had a really, really giant, I don't know if you can even call this like a tidal wave, like as a multi-year, like blow up a tidal wave. I mean, maybe, I guess that's a tidal wave. Several years ago in a relationship that I was in, which, I mean, every EJ has some like Zap story about a relationship and I'm no different. And it's pretty crazy. I can see my functions playing out so specifically in this scenario, which is really nuts. Like it's really, really nuts. You know, it feels like once you get down to like the bad stuff, the functions just play out so like so specifically. You know, it's really crazy. So the best way I can explain this is, so my functions, as I said, my SF blast is focused very intensely on like creating relationships between people and creating like good vibes with people, like actual interactions. And I was dating a guy who, I don't want to give too much, you know, details, like personal information about him, like on YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
But
yeah,
I want to explain the context like a little bit. The best way I can explain it is I think that he probably had at least something similar to a disorganized attachment style. So I don't know if you're familiar with attachment styles
a little bit
at all. A little bit? Okay, so I guess just broad overview, attachment styles are like a way to kind of describe like interactions between people. And, you know, the humans have like clumped these into 4 little buckets. And like one of them is like the healthy attachment style. And then there's like one that's attachment too much. And then another one that's attachment too little. And then there's one, the disorganized one, which is, there's a lot of aspects to it. I think the aspect that is relevant for this story is swinging between feeling loved and not feeling loved. Swinging between wanting intensely like a close personal relationship with someone and then swinging back to like pushing that person away, not wanting a close personal relationship with someone. So for the guy that I was dating, I think he was probably lead feminine FI. And for him, it was like an FI swing of like, I really, really want FI to be like really, really closely, intensely connected to someone. And then swinging to, I feel like the tribe doesn't love me enough. I feel like the tribe doesn't care about me enough. Things like that. It was like his kind of feminine FI swing. So for me, with my saviors, my SF blast, it felt like it was, you know, Shannon Dave always talk about like running up the mountain of your saviors. And like it, like your saviors don't save you, and then you just keep going, and then you finally realize, oh my God, my saviors are not gonna save the world. It felt like it was that, because he would swing to being like, you know, not feeling loved, and my saviors would kick in and just like run up the SF mountain of like, try harder, try to make it work more, try to make it work more, try to make it work more, try to make it work more. And I never really questioned whether this was the right relationship for me, and whether my saviors were the right thing to do at that time. It just felt like my saviors were just constantly not saving me over and over and over and over and over again. So gosh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so it got to the point where it was like, it just felt like not even my saviors could like, and I couldn't even make my saviors work. Because I had this belief that like I could make a relationship work with anyone, with, you know, SF blast. Like I feel like I could make good interactions with everyone all the time.
Oh, that's confidence.
And then it was like, yeah, right? Because it's like the tribe is like, even though they're scary, they're these still like cute fuzzy bunnies, you know, because they're feminine FE. So I thought everyone's workable, everyone's movable. Of course I can make this work. And then it was like this crashing of feeling like I can't make it work. And then I had all these like demon TI stuff of feeling like I just, like I won't, if I can't make a relationship work, then I'll never be able to make anything work.
Oh, wow.
And then that's kind of like a very hopeless feeling, you know, of like, I'll just never be able to make anything work, because obviously relationships are like the only things that, you know, my saviors are able to do. And if I can't do that, then I, you know, demon TI out the window. So that got me into a very, very, very deep kind of demon TI hole, where I just was, feeling like I didn't have anything because I didn't have my saviors, and I didn't like know what to do with my demons, and it was a really kind of bad place for me. And coincidentally, that happened to have also been the time that I found op. I was looking into a lot of different stuff at that time, like kind of personal growth stuff. I'd gotten into Tony Robbins, and I was doing, you know, a few other things, and I happened to have stumbled across objective personality, and that was a very it was definitely kind of a turning point in that I actually kind of started to actually understand myself, because that's what op gave me kind of in the very beginning, you know, the initial stages of like actually understanding why I was doing what I was doing, why I felt the way I felt, why I chose to stay in this relationship when I should not have chosen to stay in that relationship, things like that. So that was very, very impactful time in my life in terms of my growth. It was kind of like, you know, deep down in a hole and then kind of upwards since then, which is great. And a lot of it has been because of op, because it helps me understand myself, and it helps me see kind of myself in the tribe. So yeah, that's I guess, I don't know how I got to where I am today. But
so it felt like you were really at a point of, like, I guess, kind of hopelessness, right? Like, well, if I can't do this, then like, what can I do? And then I guess ops kind of showed you in a way, like, actually you couldn't do it because you're using the wrong tools there, you know, like you can do it, you just weren't using this other thing that you don't really use so much, and that would have worked. And then you're like, oh wait, okay, so I'm not hopeless then. I just try to put a square peg in a round hole, I guess.
And it's really interesting, the draw of it too, because it wasn't like I was trying to make something TI work. It wasn't I was trying to make something TE work. And then, you know, I found out like, oh, I'll never be able to make anything work. I was trying to make an SF thing, you know, work. And it was very much like an FI draw of like, someone needs love, you know, SF love. So like, okay, I'll put more energy there. And then that's how I got to the feeling of like, I'll never be able to make anything work because my saviors were the ones who were failing me.
Yeah. And it sounds like the responsibility was all on you to make it work. Whereas like the relationship is supposed to be both people that are responsible for it.
Well,
you didn't realize it, like, oh, actually he's supposed to do stuff too, you know? Like,
So he is putting the pressure on me to make it work. I'm also putting the pressure on him to make it work, like in, you know, a different way. But yeah, I mean, he was, because he's demon TE. So yeah.
So you figured my FI out, you know? I'll wait.
So for him, it was like, I don't feel love because you're not TE, you know, making something work. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't feel love because I'm not TI making something work. And so we were both kind of on the same narrative, because we happened to have, it feels like we just happened to have like triggered each other's saviors and demons in a very unique way.
Yeah, that's a tough. Yeah, if I was in a relationship and someone expected me to TE stuff, like, man, I'm really not the guy for that. I don't know anything about that. I don't even think about that kind of stuff. And that's how you see love, man. You're gonna feel horrible in this relationship because I don't do that at all.
I know, right?
Oh man, it's like, you want me to make stuff work for you, but I don't know what you, I don't know what works for you though. You know, like that's the TI version of like, I can work stuff for me, but you got your own things how you like. Why don't you just do it for yourself? Isn't that easy for you? You know? No, it's not. It's like you gotta. Maybe it's the same with FE. You know, it's like, well, I need you to FE with me, or else I don't know where you're at, and I don't know how you feel, and I don't feel loved in that way. And it's like, well, you can't figure your feelings out on your own. Like, it's like, oh. So yeah, that seems the most difficult. And I don't know if that's just me being like from my decider perspective, but it's like, if you're on different like decider axes, man, that seems difficult. Unless you got some like double deciding going on. That seems like that would be really hard. Like for me, maybe you feel the same. Somebody being on the other observer axis is like, you know, you might see things a little bit differently, but you're not like, I wouldn't say you're missing each other. You might have a different perspective, but your connection to that person is stable, and you don't have to guess at that. Although they may see the world differently, but like you know, you're like, for me as the TI, the lead TI dude, like and for anyone on the axis, you need to see FE signals to kind of ping back that like, okay, we're cool, we're connected, things are fine. You got to see that. And when you're demon FE, you really have to see and demon N. You have to see big giant fucking symbols, right, to get the hint that everything's fine, nobody hates you, whatever.
Totally.
And so like
that's actually something I've thought about a lot, especially because kind of one of the downfalls of this relationship was sort of a fear of like being in a relationship with the wrong person. Because with my double feminine SF, it's really easy for me to fall into relationships with people who
and hard to get out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm OI, so like it's so easy for me to fall in a hole of a relationship with like maybe someone I'm not totally compatible with. So I've thought about this a lot since then. I do feel like there's definitely some kind of conflict that happens with the different deciders, you know, because it is like my emotions are personal versus my emotions are external, and it's like let's express love in you know a way where like when I show you love, you're supposed to give it back, versus like coming to it from like we both experience love independently, and if our eyes happen to click, then that's love. So it is definitely, it feels like a different love experience. But for me, I feel like it does seem like it is possible for someone with FE to find someone with FI who does experience love in that certain way, if their FE happens to like align with their FI,
okay.
like
I see what you're saying.
It feels like that's possible. It seems less likely, and I can see why that's a big area of conflict, but it seems like it's not it like totally doable,
Totally. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel like it seems like it's less likely for people on decider axes to make relationships work. But I feel like I've seen people with different decider axes and like they have amazing relationships, and I get why. It just feels circumstantial, I guess, to me.
For me, it feels like it's like a probability thing, kind of like if you have matching decider stuff, like it's probably going to be a bit easier. But if you have two like really mature people and developed like people that aren't needing therapy too bad. I mean, we all need therapy, but you know what I mean? Like two people that are ready to be in a relationship and are willing to try to understand their partner. It doesn't matter what axis you're on at all.
They're the healthy version of their type, not the toxic version.
Yeah, the toxic version. I mean, so I think like, a toxic INFJ and a toxic ISTP, it can kind of probably work. It's still toxic people, but like, toxic ISTP, toxic ENFP, they're probably going to kill each other, most likely.
Yeah. I make fun of like the healthy toxic thing because I feel like it seems so binary, or it seems like
it's totally not binary.
Like,
you can't be toxic or healthy. You have your issues, right?
Right? Like I can talk about like the most toxic parts of myself, and in this previous relationship that I was talking about, I'm talking about literally the absolutely most toxic part of like this human being. But like if you met him, he's a totally normal, happy, healthy dude. He's like successful, he has friends, he's well liked, like he's great, but he is like feminine FI last, or sleep last, but feminine FI last. So like his FI is like the thing that's where he's like toxic, but it's like I don't know, it's not binary.
It's certainly not binary. Yeah, I agree. It's just what level are you at when it comes to, if you want to call it a skill. But there are like relationship skills. There's like being able to communicate. There's at least wanting to understand what your partner needs or what they want. There's some level of empathy. There's some level of understanding what path you want to go through, what works for both of you, all that stuff. And some people just aren't like conscious of these things. And so they get in a relationship and it blows up because there's certain things that you just have to do in a relationship. And if you haven't developed those skills or even the awareness of needing that stuff, then like, it doesn't matter what type you are. It's going to be rough. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's blasting. That's the thing I've had to learn for relationships. Like, I have to say stuff. And I have to say like how I feel about things, like, okay, it's a little tough, but I've learned that, okay, like I have to do that. And then now it makes it much easier to be in a relationship because I'm not doing a lot of blast, I'll be honest, but I'm doing enough where it's, it's enough. Yeah. So I think in general, labeling someone as toxic or not toxic is kind of like, it's not really the whole story, is it? And it's a bit insulting, I think, but it's just like, there are some sort of skills or some sort of cognitive processes that need to be there, or that should be there to help a relationship be as good as it can be. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure. And I get the idea that it's getting at. To me, it's getting at the idea of like, are you the type of person that's willing to question yourself? Or like Shannon did call it like making yourself like the non-movable, which like, okay, yeah, sure. but also like, are you the type of person that's willing to choose to be at fault for it, you know, or choose to be the one who makes a situation better, even if it's not your fault? Are you the type of person that's going to put the pressure on yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to figure out what needs to change. I'm going to figure out, like, I'm going to be the one to put in energy here and effort and be the non-movable person to make something work. Because if you're not that person, then that's when you get towards like the toxic end of the spectrum.
Totally.
Seems like it to me.
Yeah, like in a relationship, it's really easy to have your partner do something that you didn't like. And then your response is probably something negative, or almost like, I wouldn't say to get back at them, but it's like you're probably going to push back or something like that. And then they push back because you push back, and you push back because they push back, and then you just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like what you said, if you can overstep that and still like try to solve the problem, even if what they did was something that they shouldn't have done, but at least approaching it with understanding and viewing this as a team effort and wanting, you know, still looking at the goal of this working and not like how you personally didn't like what they did, which you should still express, but still have the mindset of fixing it, not like, how dare they, you know?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. And in terms of like the fixing it and the questioning the self and stuff, it feels so like, because I'm trying to describe like what it actually is and put it into words, and it feels more than just questioning the self. Because I feel like when I think about myself in that previous relationship, I was like questioning my own TI, and I was trying to like make it work with my TI, but I wasn't questioning my saviors, you know? I was still on the train of like feeling like my saviors were actually always the thing to do.
Yeah.
And then that got me into a place where I felt like I was going towards like the toxic end of the spectrum, you know? So it feels like it's questioning yourself, but then also like questioning whether being able to know when you need to use a different tool other than your saviors, which is really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
To me, at least.
Yeah. Or like just knowing that there is another tool, but you just don't have that tool.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think that becomes apparent when you save your ST. You're like, there's no STing this. This is
yeah.
You know, there's not a wrench I can pull for this, right? Like I just gotta. There's some other weird NF stuff. I don't know how that works, so I gotta figure it out.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, we can relate to that. So how did what did ops do for you as you were in that really low point in your life and you were discovering things? What were some of the discoveries, and how like overall would you say that ops has helped you?
Ops has helped me in so many ways, but I feel like overall, really, I think the gist of it is learning objective personality and seeing all the different types has really helped me see myself on the spectrum. Which, and see the spectrum itself, which like you think I would be able to see the spectrum really clearly, like I'm lead FE, but you know, I can't actually really see the tribe. So seeing other people and seeing how other people's fears are either so similar or so different than mine, and seeing the things, other people's skills, even the fact that like other people are so good at things that are hard for me, and especially seeing my own skills, seeing that I have skills that other people don't have, which is like mind-blowing to me. That really helps me place myself on the spectrum of people in lots of different areas, and skills and fears, you know, in the T and the F. So that's really, really been kind of the overview of how it's helped me. Which that has happened in a lot of different ways. One is just, you know, like learning stuff, like learning about the different types, watching the videos, and like learning how to type, and especially watching people's typing videos and seeing like their real lives and how they are. It helps me understand myself so much. But then in addition to that, I feel like I've had several kind of like, I don't know if I want to, like, brain breaking moments kind of that felt like an increase in almost consciousness, where I'm able to see something that I haven't seen before. Which I've had several of these since starting op, and it's always been like when I've been in like a stressful time, and then I can kind of like either use op or do my sleep processing or something to be able to kind of see how I'm the same or different from someone, and then see what's important or not important to me. And then my brain will just like break, and I'll have like some kind of like increase in awareness or increase in consciousness.
That's so cool that you mentioned that, because I've had like so many of those little moments where like, this is loud. Can you hear that on the mic, or is it?
No, but I also have something going on outside my window. So.
You hear that?
No, but I have an ambulance outside.
Well, good. Okay. Well, hopefully other people can't hear it. Hopefully it's not distracting. Yeah, well, there's like moments where I just like almost just flip and I'm using some other function. And it doesn't last long, maybe a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes. But like, oh, is that what this is like? Oddly enough, it's usually on the train. I don't know why it's on the train here in Germany or the U-Bahn.
Oh, that's interesting.
We're traveling somewhere, or like I'm just sitting there and like, or like, and you're just like, whoa, like, oh, this is what this is like, or this is what FI is like, or this, or just random moments. But usually on the train, 9 times out of 10, the train will trigger that. I don't know why. But it's cool that you mentioned that, because I feel like that's I don't know that I necessarily have like permanent understanding after that. I have the memory of the thing, and there's maybe a little more understanding. I don't feel like I've like I don't know, discovered something that I'm going to remember forever, but I feel like I'm a little closer to figuring things out. Is it kind of a similar thing, would you say? Or
yeah, similar. I would say it feels like it's almost like it's not necessarily something that sticks with me forever. Like I'll definitely like go in and out of it, and I'll go like back to an unconscious place. But it has caused like a paradigm shift in my brain where it feels like now that I know that information, I cannot unknow it. So like if I get like stressed out or something, I can go back to that memory and be like, okay, obviously I figured this out before, so now I know, and I can't unknow that information. And so it helps me kind of either get out of a hole or make a decision or something like that. So it sticks with me in the sense that once I have it in my TI, in my conscious part of my TI, it can't go away. Even though the unconscious will still kind of be there. But in terms of the timeline, I did have one that actually lasted quite a while one time, like 3 weeks. I feel like
3 weeks.
It was
Whoa. Okay. Crazy.
Yeah. So how this happened is it was actually precipitated by a video that Shannon Dave did about the ESFJs. And I think I was like writing them an email about because they were talking about one of the consume last ESFJs, and I was kind of writing an email about like from my perspective some of the fears of the sleep last ESFJs, which seemed less so about like other people perceiving me as like stupid or dumb or something, and more so like actually not being able to make the decisions to do things, which makes me fear not being able to have things that I want in my life. Like my biggest, I would say, demon sleep fear is not being able to meet my own standards, not being able to know what's important to me, and so not being able to create the life that I want because I'm not able to both know what's important to me and also do the thing to actually get what's important in my life.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I was kind of like processing this from this like ESFJ video, and I wrote it out, and I think I even sent it to them. And the next day it was like I had this like I don't know, it felt like my brain had just like changed, where it felt like I had given myself permission to make those decisions that I wanted to make. And especially it felt like it kind of broke the delusion that all of the standards that I have for myself were coming externally. Because I think a lot of the reason why I struggle with making those decisions is because my brain unconsciously thinks that it's actually not my decision, it's someone else's decision, it's not me making it. And it kind of like broke that delusion of like, no, that standard that you want to reach, that you're striving for, did not come from someone else. It didn't come from the outside world. It actually came from the inside of your own brain. So obviously now you have permission to do that. Which was a really intense, like, honestly, almost felt like spiritual, like, you know, how they talk
yeah, no,
about,
sure,
like,
definitely.
when someone like discovers their demons, it's like, oh, like, God arrived. He told me that I can make a decision. You know, it felt like that.
Yeah, totally. There was one FE moment on the train where I just like I don't know, I saw it as being like one tribe in the train, and then how all these people were interacting with each other, and they're all from different places and saying different things, and they all have different things going on in their life, and blah, 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 and all these ups and downs. It just felt like the whole story of the whole train was there on the train, and that we were kind of all together sharing that, which is not something that comes into my mind very often, if ever. And it was a really cool moment. I was like, is this what FE people do? This sounds like it sounds pretty amazing, like, or they felt pretty amazing and pretty like spiritual. Like, I felt like very otherworldly. I have to say.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
And I actually do have FE kind of moments like that you're talking about, where I see other people and I see like, oh, these other people are just going and like doing things about like in their lives. Because I feel like for me, even though I'm lead FE, I'm missing the sense of how I affect other people. You know, I don't see my own, how my intentions or my actions cause something in someone else to happen. So I still do have moments of like, okay, seeing other people, like, oh my gosh, they're going and doing about their lives, and that's like, ooh, but if I did this, then like that affects that person in that way, and like that's another kind of brain breaking moment for me of like, wow, oh my god, I can do something to make that person do something, and then I affect the tribe. Whoa.
Okay. Yeah, I would have guessed that would be something automatic for FEs, but I guess
because I'm missing.
Yeah, in the context it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like it's like the fact that you are actually a force. You're not just kind of in the background, I guess, right? Like you're actually a player in the game there. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, do we have? Oh, how are we on time? Do we have time? Are we trying?
I got time. Here? I'm good. If you got time, I got time. Yeah.
So I'd been studying I've been thinking about the info energy coin a lot, and I've been studying the sleep last versus the consume last EJs just recently, and I was trying to compare like the cringy version. So I've been watching the Teal Swan documentary that's on like Hulu or something. Have you been watching that?
No, but I know I've saw a lot of her videos. But wait, so no, I might have watched one of the documentaries. It was pretty brutal. It was about like how she's a fraud and all this stuff. I don't know if it's the same one, but a long time ago.
I don't know if it's the same one, but it was pretty.
It was just a YouTube one, though.
I don't know why I brought that up. That's an extra sensory thing that doesn't.
Well, it's about EJs, I guess, right? Or kind of.
So I've been watching the Teal Swan documentary, and then I also watched an interview with who's the guy? Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. Yeah.
So he like two kind of very cringy versions of their type. So Alex Jones is a sleep last double masculine ENTJ, I think, TNI. So he's my same animal stack. And I watched like an interview with him of Megyn Kelly, and she was like asking him all of these things about like, do you feel bad that you like did this thing, said this bad thing, and like then it affected other people? And all of his answers were just excuses of like, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. That wasn't me. Other people made me do that. Like on and on and on and on and on. And it's like really bad stuff, right? It's like he said some really, really like actually harmful things, which actually negatively affected other people. Like he said, I think he said like the Sandy Hook shooting didn't happen. And then all the parents of those like kids who died were upset. And people went and like harassed those parents because he said that thing. So it's like, hey, you said something bad. Other people have now harassed other people and caused negative emotions in the tribe because of something that you said. You were the effector that started this. And he was just like, absolutely not. Like, no way. I didn't do that. I did not make that decision. And it's like, I think that that's such a good archetype of the sleep last EJs of like, I have no awareness that I was the one who affected that thing.
So he's actually, in a way, telling the truth. I mean, it was his decision, but like he doesn't know that.
Yeah,
it was in a way, which makes you feel for him a bit more, right?
Crazy thing. In a way, it was the truth. Like he probably did look for excuses for other people to say those things before he did it, right? It's not well, it is an excuse, but it's not like it's like in his brain that actually is what happened. Because how else are you gonna do it if you're a sleep last EJ, you know? So it's like it's the truth, but it's also like, you know, not the truth.
It's the truth as far as you know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of crazy to watch like Alex Jones just get on a rant of like, I don't have any responsibility here and be like, oh god damn it.
And it makes things a lot more clear because I've seen some other EJ moments where it was like, I did this for you. And it's like, no, bro, you did that. Like that was your decision. And I never got that. I always thought they were bullshitting. I'm like, why are you lying? Like you did it because you wanted to do it. And I'm realizing like, oh, okay, they weren't really bullshit. They actually felt like it was the other person's thing. They feel that it wasn't the other person's decision, but at least they're being honest. They're not actually, they're not like really bullshitting, right? So I think that makes things make a lot more sense. Yeah. It's like, Like, how could you say something
the
like
crazy
that?
thing is, like, I don't see that nearly as intensely in the consume last EJs or like the energy dom EJs.
Okay.
They feel like they don't do that as much. So like going back to like the teal swan thing, which I said wasn't really relevant, which I mean it's not, but she's like, her problems in life are not about not taking responsibility. That's not it. Like she has this like crazy mission that she's, you know, trying to fulfill. And then the tribe is like videoing her doing all these bad things. And she's like, yeah, I did that, but like, it's not bad. You shouldn't think that's bad.
Yeah.
You know, her problems seem to be
like...
very different. They're not about, I didn't make that decision.
It's more like, well, it's like yeah, it's like a really unhealthy IP almost, right? Where it's like a
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think she like thinks that she's some kind of god, or she has like some kind of superpowers. She's going on into this like full blown like narcissism thing where she's like, well, I did it because I'm Teal Swan, and that's what Teal Swan does, and it was for a good purpose, you know. It's like, man,
I think a lot of people are having trouble seeing her as DE because she's so like, no, I have to be able to do my own DI.
Yeah,
weird.
It's just like constantly in a demon swing. Like, how do you type those people? Like, I think that was the issue with Kanye as well. Didn't everyone type him DI mostly?
Yeah,
being INTJ or something. Yeah,
I'm the best.
And it's like, this guy is DE. Well, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, that was nuts. He's hard to type.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was a rough one. So what are some of the stuff you're doing now? Like, I guess we have a good handle on like what OP's done for you and what made you realize. And oddly enough, I can relate to all that. I feel like it's done the same for me, even though we're kind of flipped on the DEDI thing.
I mean, single decider is single decider.
It's single, yeah, it's all the same, like basically, right? So like, what are the stuff that you're doing now? Like, do you feel like to kind of get to where you want to go, or to work on your DI, or whatever it is you're working on?
So I feel like the thing that like I really need in terms of like what I want to be able to do with OP is I do want to be able to get to a place where I have a consistent way to be able to access my TI and access my sleep, which I'm not there yet. I don't have like an actual tool that I can use to be able to get into that. But what I'm doing right now is kind of trying to basically like blast play, like trying things to be able to do that. So like I have several very specific ST goals that I've been working on for the last like almost 2 years, and they're moving along very, very slowly, but like they're chipping away in it. Honestly, it's snail's pace, but it's like I can kind of use that to be able. What?
I think that's what you have to do most of the time. If they're big goals, it's always a snail's pace. If you go too fast, you'll burn out and you won't do it, right? Anyway, I don't mean to interrupt you there. But
that is an absolute discovery for me, but yes, that is true. I've learned that is true. So it kind of just like lets me kind of experiment with ways to get into my sleep. And I think that I had initially thought that like I would be able to kind of get some sort of like meditation. I kept on trying to like fucking make meditation work forever. And it doesn't seem to get me to a productive place, you know? And I've tried to like do some like other like routines where I have like where I'm doing some sort of like you know, like repetitive like work type of thing, even like cleaning and stuff, where I can kind of like get into a meditative mode, and that like doesn't really seem to work for me so far. I haven't like totally figured this out yet, but so far the thing that seems to be working the best is almost using double observing as like a jumping off point to get into my TI and actually get my brain to do my sleep. So like for example, if I have, you know, some sort of like sleep question that I'm trying to answer, which I have, you know, all these questions that have been like rolling around in my head for my entire life that I haven't like actually dug in and answered. But there's like one that I've done this with. It's actually, of course, relationship focused, obviously. But I can like actually make a document where I can write out the sensory and like actually basically do the double observing of like, okay, here's what happened, here's the events that take place, and then I can spend at least like 2 seconds kind of jumping into my body in that sensory thing and being like, okay, how did I respond at that time? Like, what did I feel at that time, or what did I do at that time? And then I can use the double observing to help me kind of formulate looking at the things in my life that have either been important to me or that have, you know, caused me to change in some way. The events that have caused something in my own TI to move, right? And
Okay.
it's very much always starting from double observing. And then I can kind of take that and narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down. And then eventually I can get to the things that are actually important to me. But it does seem to come from a lot of double observing and a lot of time. So it'll be like a doc that I'm like, I'm writing like lists down of things that have happened in my past, and then I'll come back to it a few days later, and then I'll come back to it a week later, and it'll just be ticking along in my brain until sometime I'm looking at that doc and then it clicks like, oh yeah, of course, that is the most important thing to me.
Okay, so that's kind of the focal point of where you're trying to get with sleep processing.
Yes.
Is what's important to you, and you're trying to go into. No, that's okay. I think for me, being on a different
point?
axis, maybe I'm not completely getting it, but okay, I think I got it.
Question about what's important for me to have in my life. That's what my sleep kind of is.
Okay. Okay. So it's not like you're working on sleep in general. You're working on this, using sleep to solve this particular problem for yourself.
Well, my sleep, I think, I mean, maybe I have a bad understanding of this, but I think my sleep is the things that are important for me to be able to build in my life.
Okay.
So I have to have an understanding of what's important to me before I can actually go and build those things.
Okay. Okay. So you're looking at it as like, okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to build? And I have to access my sleep in order to know, well, what I want to build, and not also like how do I do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a second to get that. My sleep's a bit different with NP stuff. No,
I've also probably
I'm just like, okay.
Clearly, obviously not processed. Like I'm in the middle of this, you know?
I didn't sound like it wasn't processed. I think I was making assumptions and then had to re-clarify, and then okay, I think it makes sense now. Okay, cool. So you're figuring out what's important to you and how you're going to get there. And that, like, so have you been making progress? You said it was kind of at a snail's pace, but do you feel like you're kind of getting somewhere with it, or?
Yeah, I'm definitely making progress. Definitely at a snail's pace, but I'm for sure am making progress. And especially in terms of so like there's this one I gave the example. It's like a relationship question about like what's actually important to me. I've made a lot of progress there in terms of like the type of relationship that like I want to have in you know my own life. So yeah, I've definitely made progress there, and I feel like I probably will be able to do that with other kind of sleep questions. Yeah, I haven't done it with other sleep questions, but I feel like there's a part of me that feels like I should be able to make like a sleep manual almost, you know, because my sleep is ST. It feels like I could literally write it in like a book, like a list in a book, which kind of sounds crazy to me.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, I feel like I can draw mine. I feel like my sleep, I could draw it into like a shape, which sounds weird, I guess, but yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it wouldn't look like a good shape. It would look like shit, and you'd be like, "What the hell is that?" Like, I'm not really sure, but somehow this reminds me of this, and this means this.
So how do you get into your sleep? Do you have like, are you even able to describe how you get into it?
It just comes on its own. I would say whenever I'm met with something that I just like, what does that mean? And then I'll start going into it in my head or whatever. Or sometimes physical stuff will trigger it, like if I'm walking or if I'm cleaning something or whatever, or if I'm bored, then I'm just like processing some random problem that might not even be something important to solve, but it's like, well, how does this work? Well, let me think about that. And then it just happens, I guess. But yeah, or like sometimes it's done intentionally if like I have something that I have to solve in the future and I have to figure out the steps to deal with that. Like if I got some challenging thing for work and I'm like, wow, this is going to suck. I'm like, okay, let me make it easy by figuring this out in my head so I can not be anxious about it. You know what I mean? So then I'll sit down and I'll kind of walk through it and like visualize it. Okay, this is going to happen here. So, okay, blah, blah, blah. How do I spread this out? What do I do if this happens? Blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of I guess how it looks like for me.
Yeah, do you feel like you're able to get into it at will, or do you feel like you are not able to get into it at will?
Yeah, you can get into it at will, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't feel like doing that. You know, like it's only like it's usually triggered by like, or it's triggered by like, I'm taking a walk. Let me just randomly process something.
Yeah.
But like if I'm in consume mode, it's like, no, we need to consume stuff. I don't have time for the sleep thing, you know? Yeah. So it's kind of,
I think I thought I wanted to be able to like develop something where I can get into it at will, which so far I haven't. But like,
wait, so what does it look like when you can't get into it? Like what happens with that?
I don't get into it at all. It's something that happens along in the background and then suddenly it'll click. So like it'll be like I'll be looking at my own sensory. I have to remind myself of my own sensory enough. Like I'll have to force myself to come back to the sensory over and over and over and over and over again. And then I don't ever get into my sleep, but then eventually once I come back to that sensory enough, it'll be like, "Oh yeah, I had processed that. I processed that last week without my awareness. It was unconscious. It was like while I was in sleep, while I was actually literally asleep." And then
so like
now
if you're there and like you're like, okay, I need to sleep process something, and you go to try to sleep process it, but you can't get into your sleep. Like, what does that mean? Like your thoughts just don't work together, or like you get distracted, or I guess I'm not understanding.
I think it's a little bit of not really even knowing what it would feel like to get into my sleep, because I feel like I haven't
like not having a topic or a subject as well, or
what?
Like not having a topic or subject. Like, okay, what do I need to sleep about? Like, is that part of that?
No, because I know when I do need to sleep process something.
Okay.
But whenever I need to sleep process something, my urge will be to go and ping off the tribe, do play energy, or even to do NT. So like I can do like NT consume it in my head to like understand why that happened. But that doesn't necessarily get me to a point where I'm like, okay, now I have the decision of what I want to do about that. So sometimes I'll just spend so much time in NT land thinking, oh, because I'm in my brain and I'm like processing stuff in my brain. Obviously that's sleep, but then that's actually not sleep. It's NT
I see what you're saying.
of let me understand the problem more. Let me understand the problem more. Let me understand the problem more. And then I don't ever get to the solution. So sometimes I think that the reason I can't describe what it's like is because I haven't ever been in a position where I can at will get into my sleep, because it's always something that's unconsciously clicking along in the background. And it feels like I always have to do some sort of workaround to just like get my body in a place where I can, my unconscious is like pointed in this direction. And it's like, listen, Julia, you need to unconsciously process this decision. Have it done in 3 weeks. I'm going to keep reminding you about it until the unconsciousness just like makes its way forward without you even trying.
But it sounds like it's very decision oriented too, your sleep. Like you got to figure out what do I have to do sort of thing with yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's
you're just going around in your head. You're not going anywhere. So that for you, that's not what you're talking about when you're talking about sleep. You're talking about actually coming to a conclusion. These are the things that need to be done.
Yeah. Some sort of conclusion. Either knowing or deciding, because it can be action oriented, like this is what I want to do, this is the decision, and I'm going to do this tomorrow. Or it can even be like the know. So we talked about like the important stuff, like what's important in my life. That's a knowing thing. I don't need to take action on that, right? I don't need to like do something about that. I can just have that information there. So it's an information thing. I mean, a knowing thing, but and then also it can also be a doing thing. It's a
It's a weird. I can't imagine sleep processing that. It feels like once I understand it, then what I have to do is just obvious. Like, oh, here's the S. Because I guess because of SE, right? You gathered in all the S stuff, so you just know.
Sounds amazing.
Well, it's not though, because that understanding part's really tough. It's not easy. You know what I mean? Like that takes a while. But then once there, it's like, okay, then I do this. You know. Yeah. I think, and so for you, the understanding is probably the easy part. Being that like NT instead of.
Yeah. It's easy, but it's hard enough that it feels like I can trick myself into thinking I'm doing my sleep, and I can not trick myself, because like it is productive. It's useful for me to get into my NT, but it's like it's fun and it's hard enough that it's like, ooh, I'm doing something. But it's easy enough that I can actually get into it, and you know I like it. And I would say it's easy-ish. It's easy enough. Easy enough.
Yeah.
And I like it. It's fun. It's a hobby.
Yeah. Another thing you touched on with the sleep is you were also trying to find out, I guess, what's important to you. And I've wondered about this because like, I don't know if TI is really about what's important to you. I'm wondering, because I'm Savior TI and I couldn't tell you what's important to me. I know what like is may be best for me in some ways to make things easier. But like, I can't tell you like what I'm like, oh, this is the important thing in my life. It's like, well, I'm not really sure about that. I can tell you like, you know, if another example with work, oh, what makes my work easier? Well, if I do this and I automate this and this, and then things are easier. Yay. But I can't tell you like what's important to me other than making things easy, which I think is important to everyone. So I wonder,
Dave,
like, yeah,
I'm so
I think
excited that you brought that up because I have to tell you, it was actually very important for me to ask you that question on this video, and I forgot, and I totally wanted to talk to you about that.
Okay.
So that's something that I've been processing, and it honestly doesn't make sense to me, and I don't have an answer to it. I don't even want to use the word TI. It almost feels like part of my sleep is FI and part of my sleep is TI. Like, I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but it does feel like there are a lot of things that are FI that are really hard for me that I do need to get into my like sleep to do. And then a lot of the decisions do feel like TI doing, I have to have a reason to do it. And it feels like it's both.
Yeah.
So you don't think, you think that you have a void of what is important to you? How do you know what you want in your life? What you want to create in your life?
I know what things that exist that annoy me, and I try to eliminate as many of those things as I can. But I don't know what's important to me, and the reason I think that is because ultimately the tribe's what's important, right? What the tribe values is ultimately what's going to be important to me, and that's kind of where the void is in my life, right? And so I think ultimately that's what's going to be valuable. How can I do something for the tribe? I've got the TI part. I can figure out like the how to do it for them, but like I can't like to actually sink into that and go after that. It's a hard thing to align myself to that instead of just being in TI land all the time. But I think ultimately that's the trick, is like, if there's not something that's important to me, actually other people are actually important to me. And if it's important that people get this and this is helpful, then that's what I'm going to TI build. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's probably it for me. As far as what's valuable, what's important, like there's not really anything other than just I hate being inconvenienced by stuff, but that's not like a really important thing, right? You know, making things easier, making things efficient. Efficiency can't be something that's important because that'll go on forever. Do you know what I mean?
So
but I don't have it like
how are you deciding what to do? How are you making decisions? If it's not based on what's important to you, how are you making decisions about what you do?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, will this make things easier for me? Balance with, will this hurt anyone's feelings? I think that's pretty much it.
Does it make sense, kind of?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense for me to drive the long way to work or the short way to work. Well, clearly the short way. Now, there's no values in there necessarily. It just like, it makes sense what's best for me in that sort of realm, right? Like it makes sense that I meditate every day because I know that makes it to where I don't get too crazy, for instance. But it's not that it's like, that's my goal in life is to just meditate every day, right? I know that it helps and it works for me. It makes me more functional. You know what I mean?
And it's funny. I'm trying to think if I actually get to that question when I do like this process that I'm kind of thinking is my sleep workaround. And it kind of feels like I don't. The how of the ST is kind of, it feels like I just need to like try something and then see like, oh well, I don't totally know if that'll make sense, but I'll do it anyways, and then I find out afterwards if it makes sense.
Yeah, that's what ST's doing all day, is just trying stuff.
Yeah.
Or seeing other people try it and then remembering that.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I understand something, I can just do it because I've seen it done a bunch of other times, or I've tried other stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know, but I don't know if that's the best strategy for you. That for me, it's a good strategy with SE.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a universally good strategy, but you'll learn something regardless out of just trying.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, no, it makes sense to do things in a way that makes sense because you're creating things in your life that actually work for you, which is very, very valuable. But like for me, when I do get those sleep nuggets, it's always, I want to do this thing because I will like it, because it'll be meaningful to me, because it'll improve my life. It is like value-based. I always have to have the value base attached to it. It's like personal value-based stuff, which feels FI.
Yeah.
And then
it's hard to separate
the
the two, right?
Yeah. Is not so much like, have I done this before? And so then obviously since I've done it before, then I learned from that. And now I know that that makes sense to do it in that exact same way again. It's more like, well, I know that this is really important to me and it's really invaluable to me. So I'm going to expend the energy to go and get it. And hopefully I can figure out how to get it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like TI feels like what's important to me is me, that I operate at a good level, right? To me, that I'm as best as I can be, right? It feels like TI.
Yeah.
But like what's valuable for me, or what do I like, or what am I emotionally attached to? That's difficult. Like to me, it feels like the separation between TI and FI. It's sort of like, it's like a video game. It's like and you got like one of these RPG video games where I don't know how familiar you are with video game stuff, but like you're building up your character, right? You're building up the stats, you're fighting monsters to make your character stronger, you're finding new stuff, and you're building this guy up. So that's the TI. Now the FI is, why are you playing the game? What's the goal of the game? What are you going after? Like, especially in these open world games where they just go over forever, what's your thing that you like, or what's the journey that you see? With the TI person, they have no idea. I don't know why I'm actually building myself up like this. I just feel like it's the most logical thing to do. As to why, I couldn't tell you. That for me kind of feels like the difference, but I'm not completely sure on that.
Interesting. Because it's logical, because it works. Yeah. Like, how do you know you'll be happy?
I don't. You know what I mean? It's a constant like carrot on a stick thing, where it's like, I'll be happier, if I don't have to drive to work every day. Instead, I can work from home. I'll be happier. I won't necessarily be happy, but But I think that's yeah.
If I have all these things that work in my life and I can structure my life in a way that, is easy, then it will be easier for me to be happy, because that's true.
That's true to some degree, but I think what we're talking about, being happy, is different than being sort of content with your life or being fulfilled, right? Because there'll always be something to fix. There's always something.
That
Because
actually
easy
is kind of what I'm.
is comparative, right? It can always be easier. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about literally if you're flying an airplane, think about how amazing that is. It takes you a couple hours to fly across the damn world in a flying jet thing. Whereas before, people had to travel the ocean for 3 months in this thing, and they got scurvy in this boat and all this stuff, and it was horrible. And we're over here bitching about something that takes 2 hours. Even if we made flights 20 minutes, we'd still be bitching about that. It never ends. You could never TI it enough, I feel like. So it's just within reason, you can make things easier for yourself, but it shouldn't be the goal in and of itself. I feel like, there should be something that pulls on your heartstrings. And for me, I feel like that's going to be people, or I think it is people. But I don't know. I'm still discovering this stuff as well. So it's my best guess.
Interesting. God, I love learning that people navigate their lives in a totally different way than I do, That's one of the things about seeing the spectrum that I love. It just stepping into someone else's shoes and be like, what really would it be like to actually think about things in a way of making decisions about actually the structure of your life, which is totally, opposite of how I view the world. I don't know. I love finding that stuff out. I love this spectrum.
It's hard to believe too, right? When people tell you that, you almost don't believe them, kind of, because you can't really relate completely to that. And you'd be like, you can't be
and Op helps me believe people, right? When someone says that, I'm like, I believe you, because I know that that's true, because I've seen enough people say something similar enough to that I believe you.
Yeah. And it really makes you wish you could just be in their head for a day and actually experience what that is. Because I have an idea of what they might be doing, but I don't really know. And I think if I were in their head for a while, it would probably freak me out. It'd probably be so different. I wouldn't be expecting to be like, whoa, what the hell is going on with this brain? What is this thing you're doing here? This is not TI. What is this?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Would I get freaked out if I were in the body of someone else?
Seems like you would be. It seems like I would be in a way. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being demon in. I don't know. But it would probably be so different. It would be terrifying, I would think.
Maybe. I feel like it'd be fun. I feel like if I were prepared for it and I knew what was going to happen, I feel like I would just enjoy the ride and I would be mesmerized by it.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe not.
You can see it on if you can see it in a movie setting or something, where you just hear their thoughts and you got some sort of feeling things hooked up to you and you can see visually and stuff. Maybe then, but yeah.
Yeah.
But then you're separated from it still, right? That's not you. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Totally.
It would be interesting. All right, last question.
Okay.
What is your last function spirit animal?
Right. Spirit animal question. Okay. I've thought about this. This is because you gave me the questions ahead of time, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah, no problem.
This is a hilarious question.
You can thank Rose for it, by the way. Rose came up with this question.
What?
Rose? Do you know Rose? SIFE?
Oh yeah, Rose.
Yeah,
Oh, she did? Oh,
this
that's
is her
so
question.
Funny. I love Rose.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Okay, so I think the answer I come up with probably some like it'd be a bird. And I think it'd be like a very like chirpy, like angry bird. Like a bird. Because my TI is very like since it's demon, it's like babyish and it's like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not doing that.
It's a no
so
machine.
I feel like yeah, a no machine.
Yeah.
Like a little tiny baby no machine. And I feel like it would have to be a bird because the ESFJs feel the most bird-like. Shannon and Dave have said this before, especially the FeNes. I actually feel like it's the FeSIs more so than the FeNes personally. Because I feel like when I think about like birds and fish, I feel so much are like SI blasters, honestly. Like they have their little nests that they like create with their little things, and then they put their little babies in like their little nests, and then they keep coming back to their little like SI box, you know? Yeah. It feels very SIFE to me. So it'd have to be some kind of bird. And if it's demon TI, then it'd be like a really angry, chirpy, no machine bird that's just like charging at people or at other birds.
Like a parrot that says a bunch of like offensive stuff to you and stuff. Like I could see TI like that, right?
Oh my god, I love that. Yes. Hello. You're done.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah. Oh my god. Hello. You're done. You're a bad person.
It's always interesting to hear people's choices for that, but they always seem to make sense. Everyone always has a good answer for that question somehow, and some people don't even read the questions first, and somehow they come up with it on the fly. I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
It is a really good question. I mean, leave it to Rose to like
yeah,
get
right?
the NF, you know?
For sure. It was a good one. Yeah, she just sprung it on. I think she asked me during our episode. It was like the second episode or something. I'm like, what's your spirit animal? Like, wait a sec. And then I had to think about it.
Oh, what did you say yours is?
I said mine was a rabbit for Demon FE.
Oh, because
it's like feminine and kind of skittish and kind of like, hey, you know, don't touch me.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
See, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Skittish, but fluffy and like adorable and soft. Yeah.
It works, right? Cute. Hers was better though. Hers was like one of the best. Hers was a raccoon. Getting into stuff, figuring out stuff, and just kind of whatever with the any and getting into business and causing chaos and stuff. And I was like, that's really
good.
Well thought out one.
That's good.
Yeah.
God, I love that so much.
It's a great question. It's so good.
Yeah.
I think we might actually have one or two questions or comments. I was going to bring these up.
Cool.
Oh, wait, that's my comment. Double hey. Hello, Rob. I don't know if you're still here, but I'm glad you could be here. And somebody would like for you to be their grandma, apparently.
Sure, I have an opening for a grandchild, so that's perfect. Yes, I'm in.
And let's see.
What's her full type? Oh, I have the full type in the. Oh.
I think she's. That.
Please roast each other.
You ask two deciders to roast each other with FE.
I love this so much.
Or the worst person in the community.
Eddie jumps on and says, "Single deciders."
Can we?
Drama.
Can we think of the worst person in the community that everyone's FE on board with, so we don't look like assholes, and then we could say something.
Wait, make the worst person.
So you have two options: we could roast each other, or we could roast the worst person in the community.
Well, and now we have to roast Emily, because she's
clearly
she's
Emily,
the worst person.
Yeah, her and her stupid questions that always come on.
Her stupid questions.
Just kidding. We love you, Emily.
Emily has said multiple times that it is her dream in life to have me roast her publicly on a live YouTube video.
You know,
but
being
the
FE,
problem is I
you
don't
probably
have
could.
anything to roast Emily.
That's the thing. Even though you wouldn't expect an FE to roast somebody, if they actually did, oh man, would it be bad? Like,
I think that's why.
Yeah, it would be pretty.
No, I think Emily has actually picked up on that. That like I'm so like nicey to everyone, but like if I actually point out a flaw in someone, like it's not gonna be wrong.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm serious about it. I can't like double decide roast someone. I can't be like funny about it.
I can
I'm
just
like,
be
listen,
mean.
this is your worst problem in life, and you should work on it. Otherwise, you're gonna like go on a cliff and die. You know, so it's like it gets like really serious really fast.
I have the same one. Yeah, if we do a roast battle, it's just gonna be me saying mean shit to you, and it's not even really gonna be. It's gonna be oh, okay. Like I thought we were friends, man.
It would
like,
be serious.
Yeah,
it would be accurate and serious.
But you know who the at least in the MMA community, of the fighting community, the best roaster of all time is a FESI double masculine Chael Sonnen. Do you know who that is?
Oh yeah.
If you just he has a roast compilation on YouTube of him just destroying people, and it's so good and funny, but he does it in a way that it's not like mean spirited either, or at least most of the time.
No, I believe that 1000%.
Yeah, he's amazing at that.
I don't know if I could do that because it would be coming from my masculine TI and it would get really weird. But like, I could, I could do that. I'm not going to, Emily. I love you, and I'm going to absolutely ignore your question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I feel the same. You can't get us deciders to single decide in public here, or double decide, I guess. Do not relate to memory. Oh, here's a question from Cherie. Hey guys, question for both Dave and Julia. What is something you guys are both trying to build in your Demon TI sleep right now?
Ooh. My Demon TI sleep is personal. I don't want to share it on YouTube. No, for me, I mean, I have, as I mentioned, I have some ST goals that I'm working on. And a lot of it, I mean, it's relationship stuff. It's stuff I want to build in my life. Yeah, it is a little bit too personal to just like spew on YouTube. But I went through a little bit of the process of how I'm doing that. The what is a little like, I'll skip that. How about you?
That's the thing. I usually don't have like one ongoing thing that I'm processing, I don't think. One thing that I am stabbing at here and there, but I'm not really taking it too seriously because there's just not time to really think about it yet. But eventually I want to get out of IT, which I'm in right now. And I actually want to do like mental health coaching. And so I actually got accepted for a job to do it, but it didn't really work out so well with the contract and all this other stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, like I can't do it with this company, which I absolutely love the guy there, I know, and everything, and it's a great community. So I have to find another way to do it, either with another company or I have to figure it out on my own. So I got to process like, okay, what are the steps that I need to do to figure that out logically, how I can get to that thing to see if this is something I would prefer to be doing over IT. So I guess that's something I'm kind of sort of processing, not really because it's too far in the future for me to care about right now, but it is kind of there.
And interesting, I feel like a career thing is such a like a prime TI sleep thing. I don't have any career stuff that I'm processing right now. I have had in the past. But well, I'm also just pretty happy with my, like I'm happy enough about how I'm managing my career, but I don't have stuff that I'm processing actively right now about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy with it for the most part, then there's not really a lot to process. I guess the more pressing stuff, I would imagine. Yeah, if the career is good.
I'm more so like I'm like I've become easy with it enough that I don't feel like I have a whole bunch of Demon TI stuff that like, oh my god, I need to figure out what's important to me here. So yeah, but I hear that a lot from the TIs that like processing, because it's so much like trajectory of like where you're actually going and what you're doing, that career seems like it's so
career
very
always
much
the biggest pain in the ass for
and
all
also
the
an
TIs.
observer thing. It's a path thing and a thinking thing.
Yeah, because it's like I think ideally no lead TI wants to work at all because it obviously butts heads with your TI. You know, because it's always like you have a thing that you want to do and work is never that thing, you know? Sometimes it coincides with it, but very rarely, right? So you're just always like, work. It's always like the thorn in the side. But you're not an observer, so you're not like freaking out about it. It's just kind of annoying, you know? Not that all observers freak out about it, but yeah.
I have a friend who I think is the double masculine version of you, like exactly you, probably very skibby and probably double masculine.
Like an Anthony
So
Bourdain.
feminine TI.
Yeah.
What?
I think an Anthony Bourdain. I think he's that type. Double masculine.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I think so.
This guy doesn't remind me of Anthony. Anyways, I could be wrong on that. But he told me the other day, he was like, yeah, I think I was born to be like independently wealthy. Like that's how I was supposed to be in life. Okay, good. So how are you gonna get there? Like I was born to be independently wealthy instead of working. I'm like, okay. I know you're like into logic and stuff, but like let's talk about the logic.
Let's step back for a second. Walk me through that one. Yeah.
That was the most like comical like ST dream. Like here's how I want to be. It's like, but you're ST. How are you gonna do that? Yeah.
Can't relate, oddly enough. All right. Let's see what else we got. Maybe because you were free enough. I guess this is one for me. Maybe because you are free enough on the train to not stay in your default functions.
Oh, yeah. And let your mind wander on the train.
Yeah, there's probably sleep processing on the train, and usually sleep processing around other people. So they're probably involved in it. Yeah, so maybe that clicks. A lot of times I'm drinking beer on the train too. So I think that probably does some weird things to your brain, I would imagine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, you can drink beer on the train here. It's like legal. Yeah.
Do you feel like drugs or alcohol in any way helps you kind of access different parts of your stack at all? Like, have you noticed consistent alcohol helps you like get into your sleep or something?
I don't have anything that does anything for NI, but FE definitely. I can see stuff. But yeah, sometimes like just like having one or two beers to where I'm not like drunk or anything, and I'm tipsy, and then I'm on a train somewhere. Usually, I get some weird stuff from that. Good things.
I feel like I could see how that could turn off your tea a little bit. Like
maybe that's what it's doing. Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Because a little bit more uninhibited, and then I can see how that can let out the NF a little bit more.
Yeah, I had a weird moment where I could not like think anymore, to where like it sounds dramatic, but my brain just wasn't logically processing stuff, and I just was overcome with just random feelings, and the feelings all tied into what was happening around me, and it created like just almost like a movie sort of environment, and all of these things around me were influencing this emotional sort of movie I was going through just from a couple beers walking to the train one time. And I noticed that when I was in that, I wasn't able to really think logically of what's happening, or to even think how I would normally TI think. It was just so immersed in that sort of emotional, sort of weird NF realm that I was in. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like an FI thing. You know what I mean? So I get like weird things like that, some just flashes of something. It lasts for a few minutes or 30 minutes or maybe an hour, but yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder like, okay, it's just my mind just sneezing, or like, am I like actually like, this is actually what that function is like or something, you know? I'm not really sure.
You know? I wonder that too. When like
there's no way to verify it, right? So it's like,
I know, right? It's like when your mind is just like going like this, are you in your sleep then? Does that mean you're in your NT, or is that just nothing? I don't know.
Yeah, or am I just drunk? I don't know.
Yeah.
Could just be that. What's the difference between the two types of infodom? Probably have you answer this one.
So I've actually been thinking about the info energy coin a lot recently. So actually, maybe I'll ask you. So, oh gosh, so I feel like IP. One of the things that I've been processing with the EJs is it seems like the EJs energy dom ones have way more problems with like judgment and how people perceive them and whether they're bad or good, relative to other people. And the energy dom or the info dom ones seem to have way more problems with decisions and like what they're doing and how they affect other people. That's kind of what I've noticed. So what I've noticed with the blast last. Yeah, what if you notice with the IPs, the blast last IPs?
When it comes to decision making, or?
Well, have you noticed any difference between decisions and like the judgment from the tribe in terms of the blast last versus, you know, maybe the sleep last or play last IPs at all?
Yeah, oddly enough, it feels like the sleep last have more like tribe issues, even though they're glass lizards and they're double activated on FE. It seems like at times some of them are a bit more oblivious than the blast last to certain things. They seem to be more involved with the tribe than the blast last, but there's areas where they seem to be like, a bit like they're not seeing certain things, or they're kind of overstepping their bounds a little bit in some ways, I feel like. So they feel to me a bit more chaotic and with the tribe a bit, and stepping on their toes a little bit more than the blast last, but also being generally more involved and more helpful with the tribe, I would say.
Can you describe how they're stepping on their toes? Like, do you have a conceptual idea of what that is that they're doing that's stepping on their toes?
No, it's just a pattern. A lot of the sleep last ISTPs that are similar to my type, I'm just wincing a lot. I'm like, and I don't do that with the other ones as much. That's the only thing that I've noticed.
What about how they view themselves? Do you see any difference in how the blast last IPs view themselves versus the infodom IPs?
There seems to be like I only have a couple examples of this, so I'm not really sure that this is the thing, but it seems like there's less awareness of inner dislikes and likes and inner emotions and things like that with the ones that are sleep last. That seems to be a bit of a thing. It's like, hey, what do you like? They're going to have a more struggle with that than I'm going to have probably with it. That seems to be more of a difficult thing for them, I've noticed. But I've only have a couple examples of people that do that or that have talked about it. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case or not. But it does seem like for some reason the FI, even though they don't have FI, I don't have FI, it seems like that's a harder function for them. But it does seem like TE is an easier thing for them to do than for me to do, I would say, on the opposite end of it.
Yeah, interesting. This might sound like a weird question, but so as you've been like talking to people, because I haven't talked to that many IPs, do you feel like you've noticed more neediness in the play last IPs than the blast last IPs? Have you noticed that at all?
Neediness. How would you define neediness?
Almost like validation.
Okay.
Which is something that I don't think it is validate. I'm sure there's another way to conceptualize it. The way that I feel around the blast last IPs versus the play last, or I should say DIs, because I'm thinking double deciders here as well. This is just like my own thing is when I'm with a play last DI, my brain perceives that they have the same kind of like DE validation thing that I do. And when I'm with the blast last DIs, I don't perceive that they have the same kind of validation thing that I do. And I don't know exactly what that's describing. I would call it like neediness, but I know that outside of op, I feel like with the playlist, I'm like, ooh, we have the same like DE thing going on, you know?
Yeah.
That I don't feel with the last one.
Maybe what you're so I've been around quite a few people that are I've typed them as play last. I don't know if they're actually play last. It does seem like when they are hanging out with the tribe, it seems like they come off a bit more insecure, I would say. Like they feel a bit uneasy. I don't interpret that as needy, but they seem a bit more nervous than the people with the play higher up. Maybe if that is a thing, but again, I only have a few examples. But maybe if that's a thing, you're seeing that insecurity as them needing validation, maybe. And maybe that's maybe where that's coming from. I don't know. I don't even know that play last come off super confident and stuff, but actually, which I guess would make sense with their type. But that seems like the people in my life here that I would say are play last. Like, yeah, they seem a bit more on the side of things. Like they're just nervous to be around the tribe, you know.
One of the things that I've been wondering about is I've been wondering if the infodoms are more likely to go back and forth with the tribe about like knowing where they are on the consume spectrum, because consume is your extroverted view of yourself. And if you have blast and consume together, then you're more likely to take in other people's basically opinions about like your extroverted self. Like if the infodoms are more going back and forth about, here's my extroverted self, what do you think of my extroverted self? Here's my extroverted self, what do you think of my extroverted self? And the energy doms aren't necessarily doing that. They're like doing something else in terms of like, here's who I am, what I want, what I value, and like here's kind of the play that I'm doing and like the real world feedback that I'm getting from people, you know, about like who I am.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I'm wondering if there's something about that like the balance between the blast and consume versus the sleep and play that makes it like the infodoms are using the blast and consume to like go back and forth about the extroverted view of self and the tribe's opinion of their extroverted self. I don't really know, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Does that make any sense at all?
I think so. I'm not sure. Like, so, like, what would you like trying to figure out? Just if that's what you just said is valid, or is there something?
So, like, when I think about
kind of
the EJs, right? So, the EJs, at least right now, it kind of seems like the consume last or the blast last and the consume last ones are way more concerned about judgment than the infodom ones.
Okay.
And I kind of think,
at
least for me, it feels like for me, I don't feel like I'm like afraid of judgment. I am a little bit, but it feels more so that I'm responsible for managing other people's judgment of me. So it's like I'm putting my consume version of myself out there, not my sleep version, like my consume version of myself out there. And I'm also like blaster kind of like changing how people view me, and I'm going back and forth with that. So it feels like I'm kind of like navigating the judgment of the tribe. I'm assuming people are going to judge me, and I'm like proactive about it.
I see. Okay, you're doing something.
Whereas with the consume last EJs, and especially the blast last EJs, I think the blast last EJs are probably not actually managing other people's perceptions of them. Like they're not blaster telling a story, so they're not like, I'm going to give you a narrative of who you think I should be. And so I would bet that creates a lot of fear of judgment of like, since I'm not creating a narrative of who they think I should be, then like they're just giving me their straight narrative, and I'm like afraid of it and scared of it, and you know, things like that. And similar with the consume lasts, since they're constantly just like spewing their blast, they're probably not like taking in something. And it feels like they're just more like, hands up, you're not allowed to judge me, you're not allowed to make fun of me, you're not allowed to like tell me if I'm good or bad, and just less likely to go back and forth on it.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm seeing.
I think that makes
sense. The infodoms are actually managing the judgment, and the energy doms,
like, I'm not managing any sort of judgment. I feel like the more I try to manage it, the more I'm probably gonna be judged for that. So I'm not gonna.
Well, you're also, and so like even the infodom IPs, I don't think are managing judgment in the same way that I am, right? Because I'm literally a lead blast infodom EJ, and I'm FE, so like I'm managing people's emotions, and I'm managing like the blast. That's like, I'm like the ultimate, you know, managing other people's perceptions of me.
Sure.
But like even I think it'd be different for the IPs. It'd be something more along the lines of like, I'm willing to take someone else's opinion about who they like, about my extroverted self, or like something like that, you know. And I'm wondering if that's the neediness I'm picking up from the play last, is that they're just a little bit more willing to take an opinion, a blaster opinion, like into their view of themselves, you know.
Yeah, I would say, like I'm definitely open and monitoring that for feedback from the tribe of how they see me and that sort of thing. And if
you notice anything, let me know. It could be nothing,
sort of thing. That's it. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you who I am, because like that's weird. Like, what do you like? Hey, by the way, I'm this guy. Like, I just feel strange. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, you think whatever you want to think, but I prefer it not be negative.
Yeah,
that's kind of the thing. But I'm not like, I guess, thinking like, oh, people are judging me or blah blah blah. It's when somebody behaves in a way that I don't understand or can't like figure out, then I feel like, oh, it must be judgment. You kind of default to the thing that you don't want. But I don't usually feel like people are judging me unless they're like acting in a way as if I were acting if I were judging someone. You know what I mean? Which they're probably not, because I mean, who's like just spending all their time judging people? Probably nobody. I would hope. So
Yeah. The blast
Yeah.
seemed to be like, oh God, who was it? Lana something, Lana Del Rey maybe?
Uh-huh.
She said something that was so blast. That was like some like news person like wrote something about her, and she was like, no one can tell your story but you. I was like, oh God, that's so like, yeah, I have a story. I have
no one can tell your story but you.
Obviously, no one else has permission to tell that, but like me. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah. People tell all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, anyways,
people tell stories all the time. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
your story might not be the most accurate one either, right?
Right?
So,
Yeah. But yeah, if you do, I mean, if you notice anything, let me know. Like I think I told you before the call, I'm also doing an interview with several EJs next week. Actually, I think next Sunday,
okay.
right at this time,
Cool.
on my channel about the infodom versus energy dom coin.
Okay.
So, Icon, great. I don't know who that is. If you're interested.
Yeah, I'll put that in the description. Actually, let me. Can you
cool.
Can you just send me your channel name and Facebook or something, and I'll put it in the description.
I can send it to you. It's called Typing Backwards. Even though I haven't posted.
Oh wait, no, I know that one actually. Typing Backwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have like nothing. I have a whole bunch of videos from like a year ago.
Oh
and then
shit! I remember this channel. Yeah.
Next week. So
well, I'm even subscribed to it. Yeah, you had some really awesome stuff. I remember thinking like, wow, Julia knows her shit. This is really good.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, wow, it's been a long time actually since I've.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Great. Okay, well, cool. I'm glad you're hopping back on that, and yeah, I will. We'll take a look at that. Well, it's at the same. I'll try to give it a good look that night. If not, maybe later on in the week. But yeah, would love to.
You'll try to what?
Take a look at the new video. You said next Sunday, right?
Oh yeah.
I like when they have kind of the what's the word for that? Focus group for stuff, and it's just a one certain type, and they all kind of talk about the things that they're processing.
Oh yeah. Totally.
So, yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah, it's always interesting, and I feel like just in general, like the community feels like they're very interested in the info energy coin, and it feels like a lot of people are coming to, different ideas about what it is, but it feels like people are more and more realizing that it's a really important coin and that there's more to be discovered there. At least that's what it seems like for me. It's
like a new concept, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the NFTI is picking up that the tribe is talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, yeah. Anything else? Anything you wanted to ask or say before we?
I don't think so. This was so much fun. I'm so glad.
I had a great time too.
Show. I've watched several of your other interviews with other people, which I'd watched them before, and then I watched them, after you asked me. Your interviews are so great. I love the approach that you take of actually asking people to take you through their lives. Because I feel like a lot of the interviews are so very type focused, and maybe even easy to talk about functions and stuff. But your interviews, I feel like you actually get into their life and what they're actually doing and how they're actually using op in their real life, which is way more valuable because it's real,
Yeah, totally tangible.
So yeah, I really love your videos, and I'm so glad that you invited me to be on your channel.
Well, thanks a bunch. I really appreciate the compliment. Yeah, I'm glad that you like them. I'm struggling a bit, to be honest, but it seems to be working out. Being blast last and doing interviews is kind of but yeah. But I love them. There's so much. I just do them for me mostly. I mean, I like when people watch, obviously, but I'm mostly just let's just talk. It doesn't even have to be about whatever.
Can I ask you? I mean, I know we're wrapping up here. Sorry, but
yeah.
Can I ask you, what do you get out of doing these interviews? What do you take away from it? Is it an information thing? Is it seeing the spectrum thing? Is it working on your blast thing? What do you take away from it?
It's just fun. I just enjoy it. I think it's fun talking about stuff. The goal isn't to learn, well, kind of, but I usually learn stuff anyway. But if we have a completely energy dom conversation where I don't learn anything, that's totally fine too. So it's mostly I just didn't like being with the tribe and everything, and I also like reading people's comments and stuff and everything, and so it just would be a way for me to hang out with you all. So that's pretty much it.
Cool. I mean, that's
the goal.
It's a good use of time.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly had a lot of fun.
Great. I did too. Yeah. This is actually our longest growth talk. This is by far the longest one. So we set a record.
Is that good or bad? I don't know. Tell me.
No, it's good. It was a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah. We didn't run out of stuff to talk about, and time passed quickly, so I think it's a good thing.
Cool.
All right. Well, I'm just going to end the live stream now. StreamYard will still be up. But thank you all for watching, and thanks for your comments. And yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.